and he slaughtered each. For levelled by a mighty arm his ashen spear drove through the thighs of Clytius, right and left, and Clanus bit the javelin with his teeth. And by his might Mendesian Celadon and Atreus fell, his mother of the tribes of Palestine. His father was unknown. Aethon also, who could well foresee the things to come, but was at last deceived by some false omen. And Thoactes fell, the armour-bearer of the king, and next the infamous Aegertes, who had slain his father. These he slew, and though his strength was nearly spent, so many more remained, for now the multitude with one accord conspired to slaughter him. From every side the raging troops assailed the better cause. In vain the pious father and the bride, together with her mother, filled the halls with lamentations. For the clash of arms, the groans of fallen heroes drowned their cries. Bellona in a sea of blood has drenched their household gods, polluted by these deeds, and she endeavours to renew the strife. Perseus, alone against that raging throng, is now surrounded by a myriad men, led on by Phineus, and their flying darts, as thick as wintry tail, are showered around on every side, grazing his eyes and ears. Quickly he fixed his shoulder firm against the rock of a great pillar, which secured his back from danger, and he faced his foes, and baffled their attack. Upon his left Chaonian Mulpius pressed, and on his right an Abathian called Ethamon pressed. As when a tiger from a valley hears the lowing of two herds in separate fields, though hunger urges he knows not on which to spring, but rages equally for each, so Perseus, doubtful which may first attack, his left or right, knows not on which to turn, but stands attentive witness to the flight of Mulpius, whom he wounded in the leg. Nor could he choose. Ethamon, full of rage, pressed on him to inflict a fatal wound deep in his neck, but with incautious force struck the stone pillar with his ringing sword and shattered the metal blade close to the hilt. The flying fragment pierced its owner's neck, but not with mortal wound. In vain he pled for mercy, stretching forth his helpless arms. Perseus transfixed him with his glittering blade, Cyllenian. But when he saw his strength was yielding to the multitude, he said, "Since you have forced disaster on yourselves, why should I hesitate to save myself? O friends, avert your faces if you stand before me." And he raised Medusa's head. Thessalus answered him, "Seek other dupes to chase with wonders." Just as he prepared to hurl the deadly javelin from his hand, he stood, unmoving in that attitude a marble statue. Ampyx, close to him, exulting in a mighty spirit, made a lunge to pierce Lyncides in the breast, but as his sword was flashing in the air, his right arm grew so rigid, there he stood, unable to draw back or thrust it forth. But Neleus, who had feigned himself, begot by sevenfold Nile, and carved his shield with gold and silver streams, alternate 7, shouted, "Look, look, O Perseus, him from whom I sprung, and you shall carry to the silent shades a mighty consolation in your death, that you were slain by such a one as I." But in the midst of boasting the last words were silence, and his open mouth, although incapable of motion, seemed intent to utter speech. Then Eryx, chiding, says, "Your craven spirits have benumbed you, not Medusa's poison. Come with me and strike this youthful mover of magician charms down to the ground." He started with a rush. The earth detained his steps. It held him fast. He could not speak. He stood, complete with arms, a statue. Such a penalty was theirs, and justly earned. But near by there was one, Aconteus, who, defending Perseus, saw Medusa as he fought. And at the sight the soldier hardened to an upright stone. Assured he was alive, Astyages now struck him with his long sword, but the blade resounded with a ringing note. And there, astonished at the sound, Astyages himself assumed that nature, and remained with wonder pictured on his marble face. And not to weary with the names of men sprung from the middle classes, there remained 200 warriors eager for the fight. As soon as they could see Medusa's face, 200 warriors stiffened into stone. At last, repentant, Phineus dreads the war, unjust, for in a helpless fright he sees the statues standing in strange attitudes, and, recognizing his adherents, calls on each by name to rescue from that death. Still unbelieving, he begins to touch the bodies nearest to himself, and all are hard stone. Having turned his eyes away, he stretched his hands and arms obliquely back to Perseus, and confessed his wicked deeds, and thus imploring spoke, Remove, I pray, O Perseus, thou invincible, remove from me that dreadful Gorgon. Take away the stone-creating countenance of thy unspeakable Medusa. For we warred not out of hatred, nor to gain a throne, but clashed our weapons for a woman's sake. Thy merit proved thy valid claim, and time gave argument for mine. It grieves me not to yield, O bravest, only give me life, and all the rest be thine. Such words implored the craven, never daring to address his eyes to whom he spoke, and thus returned the valiant Perseus. I will grant to you, O timid-hearted Phineus, as behoves your conduct, and it should appear a gift magnanimous to one who fears to move. Take courage, for no steel shall violate your carcass, and moreover you shall be a monument, that ages may record your unforgotten name. You shall be seen thus always in the palace where resides my father-in-law, that my surrendered spouse may soften her great grief when she but sees the darling image of her first betrothed. He spoke and moved Medusa to that side where Phineus had turned his trembling face, and as he struggled to avert his gaze, his neck grew stiff. The moisture in his eyes was hardened into stone, and since that day his timid face and coward eyes and hands forever shall be guilty as in life. After such deeds, victorious Perseus turned and sought the confines of his native land, together with his bride, which, having reached, he punished Proteus, who by force of arms had routed his own brother from the throne of Argos. By his aid Acrisius, although his undeserving parent, gained his citadels once more. For Proteus failed, with all his arms and towers unjustly held, to quell the grim-eyed monster, Snake Begin. Yet not the valour of the youth upheld by many labours, nor his grievous wrongs have softened you, O Polydectes, king of little Seriphus, but bitter hate ungoverned rankles in your hardened heart. There is no limit to your unjust rage. Even his praises are defamed by you, and all your arguments are given to prove Medusa's death a fraud. Perseus rejoined, By this we give our true pledge of the truth. Avert your eyes. And by Medusa's face he made the features of that impious king a bloodless stone. Through all these mighty deeds Pallas, Minerva, had availed to guide her gold-begotten brother. Now she sped, surrounded in a cloud from Seriphus, while Cynthus on the right and Gyarus far faded from her view. And where a path, high over the deep sea, leads the near way, she winged the air for Thebes, in Helicon haunt of the Virgin Nine. High on that mount she stayed her flight, and with these words bespoke those well-taught sisters. Fame has given to me the knowledge of a new-made fountain, gift of Pegasus, that fleet steed from the blood of dread Medusa sprung. It opened when this hard hoof struck the ground. It is the cause that brought me. For my longing to have seen this fount, miraculous and wonderful, grows not the less in that myself did see the swift steed nascent from maternal blood. To which Urania thus, Whatever the cause that brings thee to our habitation, thou, O goddess, art to us the greatest joy. And now, to answer thee, reports are true, this fountain is the work of Pegasus. And having said these words, she gladly thence conducted Pallas to the sacred streams. And Pallas, after she had long admired that fountain flowing where the hoof had struck, turned round to view the groves of ancient trees, the grottos and the grass bespangled, rich with flowers unnumbered. All so beautiful she deemed the charm of that locality, a fair surrounding for the studious days of those Mnemonian maids. But one of them addressed her thus, O thou, whose valour gave thy mind to greater deeds, if thou hadst stooped to us, Minerva, we had welcomed thee most worthy of our choir. Thy words are true, and well hast thou approved the joys of art in this retreat. Most happy would we be, if only we were safe. But wickedness admits of no restraint, and everything affrights our virgin minds, and everywhere the dreadful Pyreneus haunts our sight. Scarcely have we recovered from the shock. That savage, with his troops of Thrace, had seized the lands of Daulis and of Phocis, where he ruled in tyranny. And when we sought the temples of Parnassus, he observed us on our way, and knowing our estate, pretending to revere our sacred lives, he said, O Muses, I beseech you, pause. Choose now the shelter of my roof, and shun the heavy stars that teem with pouring rain. Nor hesitate, for often the glorious gods have entered humbler homes. Moved by his words and by the growing storm, we gave assent, and entered his first house. But presently the storm abated, and the southern wind was conquered by the north. The black clouds fled, and soon the skies were clear. At once we sought to quit the house, but Pyreneus closed all means of exit, and prepared to force our virtue. Instantly we spread our wings and so escaped, but on a lofty tower he stood as if to follow, and exclaimed, "A path for you marks out a way for me." And quite insane, he leaped down from the top of that high tower, falling on his face, the bones